over 1 million views. Our business was not always t-shirts and screen print transfers. Ended up that we had a Buzzfeed article written about us. Close. Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hi, my name is Mick. I am the owner and the head of production here at amstransfers.com. I thought today we would do something a little different because everyone always asks questions, whether that's on lives or it's in videos, and they just want to kind of get to know Alex and I, our backstory. We've answered it briefly, or we've talked about it briefly in some podcast episodes. If you guys are ever interested in listening to those, I'll leave a link below. But I thought today I would kind of take you guys down a little story time, show you some stuff that happened at the beginning of our business journey, and kind of just tell you how we got where we are today. Obviously, home of 4 DTF printers, a screen printing business, as well as a UV DTF. So let's just get right down into it and start talking about where we came from and who is AMS Transfers.
Unsealed, deliver. Every package is a promise I keep. From the heart is what hustle looks like when it's fake.
Our business was not always t-shirts and screen print transfers and UV and apparel. It actually started back in 2020. Okay, so everyone make sure that you grab your beverage of choice because we are going to get into a little bit of a story time. We're gonna flash back to that year that no one talks about, no one wants to talk about, and that is 2020. So in 2020, obviously everyone knows COVID happened, the world shut down. I personally was working in a dental office and my office ended up closing for, I think that it was like March of 2020 that everyone started closing. You know, the first couple months you're like, yeah, I get time off, I'm enjoying it. And then it's like, okay, I'm ready to get back to real life and out in the real world. So it was basically by June, Alex and I had decided we were going to kind of take a little road trip. One place that we love to visit is Colorado. So we were like, we're going to just drive to Colorado and kind of just like get out of the house. We won't talk to anyone, we won't see anyone, we'll just, you know, do a little trip. But that little trip ended up to be the start of basically everything that you're seeing behind us. So at the start of the trip, it was right before we left and we were road tripping it. I told Alex I need something to hold my Hydro Flask. Just imagine a world like that. It didn't fit, and I wanted to bring it with me to Colorado because we were going to be driving and I wanted to take it. Well, earlier in the year, Alex had purchased a 3D printer, and then he ended up creating a Hydro Flask, what we called the Hydro Flask adapter, that would hold, basically I'll attach pictures, videos of all that for you guys to see, and that would hold the Hydro Flask into your cup holder, keep it steady. You wouldn't have to worry about it wobbling or anything like that. I used it on the trip, it was great, I loved it, and then I brought it home and I had friends that were like, that was a smart idea, that you should make that. So we went to Etsy and we listed it on Etsy, and when I tell you, it started like instantly. We had a sale within a day. So we were creating these Hydro Flask adapters with a 3D printer. We started listing the Hydro Flask adapters on Etsy. At this point, TikTok was starting to blow up, so we created a TikTok account for that. On top of it, we were also selling just like anything 3D printed. Alex was making rockets, people were buying rockets off of him. So we were really fully in the 3D printing game. And this was something that I think we were thinking, like, one, we had it made, like we were gonna be millionaires. At this point, it was like August of 2020 and no one was working. People had expendable money because stimulus checks. So it was just like people were buying whatever, and this kind of blew up. And at that point, we weren't even known as AMS Transfers. We were known as Space Out Labs. And we created, like I said, rockets, and we created 3D printed Hydro Flask adapters. But then we also kind of dipped into the silicone game. I don't know if you guys have heard of silicone, but back then it was like the silicone trays people would make were very popular. They were all over Etsy. People were like obsessed with them, and we were like, we could make those. One, it was a nightmare to make. But on top of that, we also were like, we could make food molds. So we got food grade molds and we started making the Sour Patch, or I should say, like, we were making molds that shaped like Sour Patch, and we were selling those as well. That ended up to be like here or there. Like it was making money at the time for what we were doing, but it was never going to be a business at which we could thrive on, or we could actually build a company out of it. So we definitely knew we had to change courses just a little bit. And that is when we started looking a little bit more into the t-shirt game. Obviously, everyone wanted to make t-shirts. Guys, when I tell you that our first t-shirts were truly, there's going to be pictures on the screen. It was, looking back now, we were so proud of it, and we were just little noobs and little babies, but they were bad, and it wasn't great quality. It was on like Gildan 500. We were just starting out. We were trying things, all of that. So we were at this point in the office in our house, so we hadn't had a warehouse or a huge space or anything like that. But we definitely knew that the t-shirt game, it's a competitive one, and we needed to either step up or we needed to branch out. And so that is when we ventured into the next thing that we brought into our business. That next branching out ended up to be a laser. I will again have videos for you guys to see, but this laser would basically engrave things. So we were planning to list leather, we were going to list coasters, we were going to list glass. Like, I'll put everything on the screen. Basically, what we had posted were some like decor for the house. And we basically just went crazy with the laser, and we ended up posting all of this. And you know, some stuff sold, but again, that wasn't what we wanted to do, and we knew you couldn't build a company. And when this was still, we were learning at this point. I think it was late 2020, early 2021. So we were still learning how to run a business and how to actually have something that can grow, that we can have for years, that can become a full-time job. At this point, the world was beginning to open up, and my dental office that I worked at ended up opening again, and they basically were like, we need everyone in the office come Monday. And I told Alex, I said, I don't want to go. I was unhappy there. I was young. I was like 20, I think 22 at the time, maybe 21 or 22. And I knew that wasn't my career. I couldn't just be in the dental office working like that. I just knew that wasn't what I wanted. And Alex also knew that he was not meant for that. So we said, we're making enough right now to continue to support our life as it is. But in order to make this a full-time company and a full-time job, we do need to expand. We need to better our products. We need to kind of move the needle forward. And that is when we invested in the Cricut. If you guys don't remember, I mean, obviously you guys know what a Cricut is, but the hype of the Cricut in 2021 and 2020 during the pandemic, it was insane. And we ended up getting one on sale from Michael's, but it was like the only one. They were getting sold out. They were like, people were just buying them everywhere. I mean, I knew people who had bought them, and on top of it, we were buying heat presses. Like, we were like, okay, the Cricut, like, this is the new t-shirt game. We hadn't even dipped our toes into anything else. So we knew, okay, the t-shirt game, we're gonna get rid of the printer paper and the white paper, and we're gonna move into t-shirts, and we're gonna move into Cricuts. And we stocked up on vinyl, we tested it again, we listed shirts, and this is when we started listing custom apparel onto our Etsy store. This was mid 2021. We were bringing on some custom vinyl t-shirts. We had done a little bit more of a deep dive into actual t-shirts. So we knew then that the Gildan 5000 was probably not the best for a high quality job. On top of that, we were limited when it came to Cricuts and custom. Like, of course there's like unlimited, I guess, you could say for Cricut, but it does come with hours of weeding and vinyl and peeling different colors and heating different colors. And it was just, again, because we were talking about today when I was doing a deep dive for videos and pictures, that we were insanely happy. This was like the start of our huge business. We're going to be millionaires. We got this. Little did we know where we would be, but I mean, we were happy, we were excited, we were literally like determined. I wouldn't say as determined as we are now. We are more disciplined now. We are older now, so it's like we are not babies, if that makes sense. But anyway, as I was saying, we bought the Cricut, listed that. On top of the Cricut, we also added in sublimation. So at this point, we had gotten rid of the printer and all of that. We went into sublimation The laser we were still using, we were still trying to push, and then we were doing Cricut custom apparel as well as Cricut designs. At that point, we were still known as Space Out Labs, but we were slowly branching into Wine and Whiskey Co. So I ended up changing the name on Etsy and everything like that, and I kind of made it more along the lines of like my shop. I would create like t-shirts and list them on there. I would create mugs, like all of that. We'll get into that a little bit later. But I definitely started launching just more pre-made apparel. So once we started dabbling a little bit more into sublimation, because we didn't like the feel of the vinyl, we didn't like the hours that it would take to create one t-shirt because of that. So we were like, okay, we have a base of Cricut and vinyl, let's move it up to sublimation. So we started moving up to sublimation, and then it was like, okay, well, there's restrictions on sublimation. Okay, what can we do now? Let's add in embroidery. After the sublimation and the Cricut, we also went and bought a heat press, like I told you guys, but we also bought the 5-in-1, so we could add in phone cases. We added in mugs, custom mugs. We just basically added everything. We weren't saying no to any job, which I think was a very big issue looking back now. I mean, like, this video could be lessons I learned back when I was starting my business, but we were just dabbling in too much and not giving enough to one thing, if that makes sense. After purchasing the mugs and everything, again, it was just like keeping the business afloat, but it wasn't giving us a company. It wasn't giving us a full-time job that we could use to better our futures. And that is when we discovered the world of screen printing. Well, I should say Alex discovered the world of screen printing. He came to me and he said, I don't think that Cricut is going to be, or sublimation is going to be something that we can do for low-end or high-end jobs. At that point, we had people reaching out to us from schools, fans, everything like that, that we knew we couldn't sit there and wait for a Cricut design to finish for us to be able to then press for hours on it. It just wasn't feasible. We weren't going to be able to grow that way. We weren't going to be able to meet deadlines. So we said, okay, screen printing is going to give us to be able to do those high demand jobs. Guys, we did not start with a screen printing press. I'm getting there, don't worry. We went online and we bought a press that basically sat on a table. It did not even have the legs that you see behind me. It did not have anything like that. It was basically, you set it on a table. Alex built a cart specifically for this, and we were printing. But we were, again, so excited. We were printing on bags. We were like getting into the world. We were dabbling in it. There's even like this video of me attempting to screen print for the first time, and you can just like see the hesitation in me as I'm like pushing down the ink. But at that point, it was late 2020 or early, yeah, I think late 2021, early 2022. And we had moved into the garage. So we had taken over the office with all of our garments and our Cricut supplies and all of that. And now we were transferring into half of the garage. Well, we put the press in there. We were tight knit. We were basically drying things by the air. Like, we were just trying things out because we wanted to grow, and we had this drive to make this bigger than what it was at that point. Then we decided that, yes, we're going to need a bigger press. Like, this isn't going to work. So we looked for weeks and weeks on end, and Alex came to me one day and he said, Michaela, there's this guy in Alabama. He has a screen printing press for a great price. I think that we should rent a van and we should go get it and we'll drive back. But I was like, all right, I guess we'll do it. So Alex told him, he was on eBay. Alex told him, hey, we'll make it to you this weekend. We're just gonna rent a truck, we'll pick it up and we'll come home and all this. And he was like, yeah, okay. So we went and rented a truck, and that morning, before we left for the long road trip, Alex found a guy in Houston that was selling our press, which is this one back here. Not only was he selling that press for like a great steal, he was selling the dryer that you guys can't see, but he was selling the dryer, a bunch of inks, a bunch of screens, and we still have some of those screens. Like, it was basically the perfect setup for a newbie screen printer. He also had all of the chemicals we were gonna need. He had ink, like all of that, and he was asking for the same price as the guy in Alabama. So Alex reached out to him and he said, I'll take it today. Like, we'll come get it right now. We already have a truck rented. And he was like, all right, come on down. So we met him at his storage unit and he ended up helping us load up our wonderful press that you see back there. And that carried our business for a good amount of years. So that happened. We ended up purchasing the press, took it home. Again, so excited. But I don't know if you guys could see this thing. It's like very heavy and it's huge, so you don't really want to put it down. So it's literally been on those wheels since, I think it went down at one point, but since we put it on since we moved to this warehouse. So when we ended up getting the press back to the house, it was, okay, we can't have all of this stuff here as well as this press. Like this press, this dryer, all of the supplies is going to take up way more space. So we ended up selling the laser. We were sad about it at first, but we really just knew that it wasn't going to carry the same weight as the potential screen printing had at the time. So we sold that. We sold the Amazon screen printing press. We basically went all in at this point on screen printing. And we were then prepared to take on the schools and the larger jobs and whatever they threw at us, we could take. That was until we had a school reach out and ask if we could do embroidery. That was the one thing that we didn't have at the time. We were like, we have sublimation, we can do mugs, we can do promo, but we can't do embroidery. So we were toying with the idea of, is this something that we should add? Should we just kind of purchase them out, just purchase from a different company and then have them, like, we'll basically be the middleman? And we were like, we have to try. So what did we do? We started scouring for embroidery machines and we ended up finding one in our neighborhood that this lady was selling. Not only was she selling the embroidery, she was selling bins of thread, bins of hoops, and like everything again that you would need to get started. So now thinking about it and talking about it, those two things really, like finding the perfect stuff, really set us up for success in that way, because we wouldn't have known what to buy. We ended up buying Mighty hoops because really honing in on embroidery and doing that, and we added it. And guys, I tell you, I could have wrestled with that embroidery machine for it ended up sticking kind of because it was like we would get few jobs after the job that we would get from like schools. It wasn't really, there was so much competition already and there was already so congested. Like embroidery has been around for years, so we were like, okay, is this really something like that we want to do, we want to get into? And we continued to keep it. We did jobs here and there, but it really wasn't the meat of our business. The meat of our business at the time was screen printing and utilizing our screen printing press. At that point, we were like, well, what more can we do? And we were like, should we start going to markets? Should we start going to should we just start selling at vendor shows? Like, what can we do to expand this screen printing world, basically? And that's when we discovered live screen printing. If you guys don't know what live screen printing is, it is basically you go to an event and they have a screen printer there that screen prints on t-shirts. You can screen print on bags, you can screen print on like whatever. They just basically have a person there doing it. So we did end up doing some live screen printing, and we only did 2 events. But it was quite a learning experience. One, we probably didn't do it right, but we obviously knew that we could not carry our one screen printing press. So we ended up purchasing this one. And as you guys can tell by the way it looks, it basically just sits in our warehouse. We don't use it. Ever since those 2 events, we have not used our screen printing press or the screen printing press. Sometimes, I should say we haven't used it, because there was a time at some point when we had super busy jobs and Alex would be printing bags on this and I would be printing on the big press, but we don't use it anymore. It just sits there. So at this point, it was the end of 2022 or the mid of 2022, somewhere around there. We are overflowing with orders, with custom orders. We are working with schools. We are basically overflowing the house with some kind of apparel or some kind of screen printing chemical or something. We were also still running the Hydro Flask adapters, which again, I will get back to that in just a second. So we knew that something had to change, and we were like, okay, we got to start looking. Well, at this time we had 3 3D printers. The Hydro Flask adapters were still hot on the market. They were a bestseller on Etsy. Of course, competition had come in, but we had created ours. We had tested products. We had some influencers that actually really liked it, and they left us a review and they made a TikTok about it and everything. So it blew up. But then one day, Alex and I woke up to go out to our garage and realized that our Etsy account had gone up to like 120 to 200 orders overnight. What is happening? And I scoured the internet. Well, on Etsy, you can actually read, I didn't realize this until later on, but on Etsy, you can actually tell where a lot of your traffic is coming from. So I scoured the internet until Alex was like, it's right here, Michaela. And ended up that we had a Buzzfeed article written about us as it was like the top 10 or whatever travel products of 2022, and ours was in there for road trips. It was the adapter, but it also linked back to our Etsy account, and orders people were just buying like crazy. So at that point, it was like this product that we've just been kind of selling here and there. Well, it wasn't here or there. We were selling multiple a day, but it wasn't like as big as it was. And we were like, should we shift our turn? Should we try to like perfect the adapter, or should we stick with like t-shirts? Is this a chance for us to like push our t-shirts so that we can get more traction? But this side of it was almost like we had two businesses. One was apparel and one was the 3D adapters, and the 3D adapters were taking off and the t-shirts were taking off, and we were pulled on like which way we were going to go. But one thing we did know was that we needed more space. So started basically touring warehouses, figuring out where we wanted to go, where we wanted to see the business, how we wanted to expand. And we toured one warehouse. I'm going to leave the video of it so you guys can see what it looked like, because if you guys have watched my vlogs now, you know that like me now, I couldn't do that. But so I'll add that in. We toured this warehouse, and it was in a like kind of like an office, like a co-working space, but almost like in the basement of the co-working space. When the realtor took us to see it, we ended up walking, when I kid you not, we walked down, I want to say like 3 long hallways to get to this space. And hopefully by now you've seen it. There was no windows. There was no AC, you guys. And I don't know about you, but in Houston, you gotta have AC. But we were like, this is in our budget. We need space now. We're like overflowing. And we were this close to signing that. And it was scary. It's scary to think about that. We were that close to like making that decision, because it would have drastically changed the course of our business most likely, because these printers would not be able to fit in there now. So we were like, okay, well, let's think on it. We'll give it one more day. There was still some work that we needed to see if the guy could get done. He needed to see if he could get some ventilation in there so that we could work. So that we could have like ventilation, because this right here, this screen printing dryer does need ventilation as well. So we basically were waiting around, and while we were waiting, Alex still was searching and just being like, I'm not 100% set on this warehouse. And he came across the one that we are in now. It was in our price range. It was a little far from home, but it was air conditioned. It had basically everything we needed. We called them. They were like, yeah, go stop by today. There was no one here that needed us to like walk in. We got to walk in. We got to look at it ourselves. And then we basically called them up that same day. We're like, yeah, we'll take it. And they said, okay, let's get your lease signed. So that was in May of 2022. And I'm going to add in all of the videos throughout this, because you guys will laugh if you see us mopping the floors of this warehouse, or us like being so cautious about everything, because now it's literally just like a warehouse. At that point, screen printing was still sticking us around. We were making the 3D adapters. We were up to our ears. The 3D adapters were still at home, so we hadn't been able to move them here. We were moving them. We had one here, and then we would have some at home, so we could run throughout the night, like basically all day printing. When I tell you that we were basically sleeping with these printers, because the Buzzfeed article had skyrocketed our sales, our shop, like everything, we were sleeping with the printers. Like they were literally crossed from our bed, and Alex would get up in the middle of the night, or I would get up in the middle of the night, and we would restart the print, and we would just sleep with them, which was so probably unhealthy to be breathing in stuff like that. But we did what we had to do to make it work. And then, of course, like, to end the saga of the Hydro Flask adapter, you guys know, like, Stanley came out. They started making them, which I don't know why this wasn't something to begin with, but they started making them fit in your cup holder, and we were like, okay, well, we saw our competitors, and we were just like, yeah, like, people were like, this isn't working anymore, like, people are just going to buy that. And we knew at that point, okay, apparel's where we need to go. So we didn't end up stopping the Hydro Flask adapters until last year, so 2024, like early last year, I think. It just wasn't worth our time to worry about it. We are listed the 3D printers, and we sold all of the 3D film, and we were like, we'll wash our hands with that. We'll start selling apparel. At this point, I think it was so we were in the warehouse, or we weren't in the warehouse yet. No. So before we actually moved into the warehouse is when we started the world of screen print transfers. And if you guys obviously can't tell, then the screen print transfer game is really where we settled. It blew up. Again, apparel has been around for years, screen printing apparel, so we knew it was already competitive. At this point, screen print transfers was new. We got into the game right when it was coming out. It was something new, it was something fresh, it was something exciting, because crafters didn't want to have to handle vinyl, they didn't want to have to weed, they didn't want to have crickets, they didn't want to have screen printing press. So this is really where it took off, and we started doing our transfers. We had a bunch of different designs with screen printing, but you guys do know that sometimes with screen printing it is hard to create a multiple color job coming down to screen print. Usually we still say now up to 4. Other than that, you want to switch over to the DTF. So we did have 1, 2 color designs. We were allowing customs, so that was something new. Not a lot of people at the time were allowing custom screen print transfers. So we dove in, we dug our toes in, and we started advertising. We started running Google ads, we started running all of these Etsy ads, and we started basically diving fully into the screen print transfer game. We were still printing apparel, but the majority at this point of the focus was on screen print transfers. And then we got into the world of DTF. Well, I should say that the world of DTF kind of like came to us because it was like, well, what is this? What is DTF transfers? And DTF transfers really changed the game for a lot of businesses and a lot of transfer vendors already, because you were able to offer full color designs, you were able to offer custom full color designs, which is a big deal, but you were also able to have no minimums, which if you guys have purchased screen print transfers, then you know that minimums are often required because of the setup costs and how much it is to actually like get done. So a printer or a DTF printer allowed you to charge no minimums, no setup fees, nothing like that. It was super easy. It was a good cost, and we dove in and ended up buying one of our very first DTF printer. And I actually found some clips of us buying it and getting it delivered, so I'll add that in. But you guys can actually probably go back on my channel and see all of these if you want to watch them in live time. But my content has changed a lot. I have changed a lot, so don't, it's not great. But if you ever do actually want to see like the deep dive other than these little clips, there are videos on my channel of us getting it. I wasn't great at vlogging back then. Headaches and a lot of, because these things are heavy, you guys. And I remember for the very first one, we had put it on the 2 legs, put it on the 2 legs. Well, Alex said, I think it's on back. He was like, no, I think it's on backwards. So we moved it around, screwed it in, and then it was like, oh no, now it's on backwards. So we had to pick it up and move it back around. So again, if you ever want to test your patience with your partner, just go build a DTF printer together. But ended up buying a DTF printer. It actually was not in this warehouse, or in the actual warehouse, it was in the office space. So you guys, these dryers can't fit into a standard like size door. So we actually had to end up removing the doors onto our warehouse. We had to bring it in through the garage, take the door apart, and then bring the dryer in through the door. Can't say that there wasn't any walls chipped or anything like that, but we basically were like, we have to get it in there because it had to be temperature controlled. And while it is temperature controlled out here with like the air and everything, we were much more cautious back then about control of the printer. So we basically we're like, we can control it more in the office. And I typically worked in the office with the DTF printer, and Alex worked out here. This was more his office. He would be screen printing. He would be, he had his desk out here, and I basically was just in the office like I do now out here, but I was doing it in there and running the printer. We had a bunch of new clients that were excited to try DTF transfers. They were, again, cold peel was the big thing at the time. The instant peel, hot peel wasn't that. So, but even like the capability of just having a transfer and being able to apply it was such new technology that people were like so excited. So we decided to, again, focus in on that. We started posting on TikToks, posting on social media. At this point, we already kind of had a following on Etsy due to the Buzzfeed article from the Hydro Flasks, but that helped with our review system. It helped with kind of just getting traction to our shop, which also allowed us to add on DTF as well as screen prints on there. So I was going live on TikTok every day because, again, this was new technology. People like were interested to see what it was about, how to do it. They wanted their own, they wanted to buy. So I would get on TikTok for hours. When I say hours, like 4 hours sometimes at a time, and I would just talk to my followers. I would print transfers with them. I would answer questions, and I basically spent my day printing the transfers and uploading onto my social media accounts. And one day it paid off because I ended up had a viral video, and it went to over 1 million views, which brought in a lot of sales for, like, of course, just one-off because it was a pre-made transfer. It was a pre-made transfer for the movie Halloween Town. It was like during the fall. I made a bunch of like aesthetic videos about it, and it blew up, and people were buying the transfer left and right. We couldn't keep up with demand because at that point people were buying one-offs, but at that point people were also discovering, due to a viral video, that we could offer custom transfers. So then they would go purchase custom transfers, and then we had people still buying that. And on top of it, still doing like apparel for schools. So we were pushed and pulled in all directions, and we weren't able to meet. One of the biggest things we've always wanted was to keep our 1 day, at this time, it was 1 day turnaround time. And we didn't want to up it, but I did have to once that viral video. It would end up going 1 to 2 days. But with the 1 million views, your next videos kind of also do very well. So the more and more videos that I got and the more lives that I went, more people bought. And we were like, we can't handle this kind of demand. And that is when we bought DTF printer number 2, which is right here that you guys are seeing. If you guys have watched my vlogs before, you know that this is like my favorite printer. And I think that it was because, like, thinking back on it, one, it's a very good printer. All of our printers are the same exact printer, but this one just like holds a special place in my heart because it was such like a fun time, but also it was like, wow, we're growing. Like, our business is growing to the point where we need multiple printers. So we had this printer right here as well as that printer right there. That is 1 and 2. You'll notice them based on, like, because it's red, and the other ones we got are blue. But we ended up having 2 printers. But if you guys have seen The Office in our vlogs, then you know that you cannot fit 2 printers into that office space. It's just not going to work. And on top of it, you don't want it could work. We were literally trying to figure it out, but it would be too tight. So we were like, we got to move them to the warehouse. Ended up moving them out here into the warehouse and just worked on growing our business as best as we could, as fast as we could, keeping up on social media. Alex's YouTube channel at this point had taken off. He was vlogging every day. I was vlogging here or there. I wasn't as good as he was at that time, but here I am now. I'm much better now, guys. But he was basically, and that again was getting more traction and more views and more orders. People were discovering us. We were also running ads on like Google and running basically everything we could to get business in the door. And it was working, and we ended up having 2 printers. Well, in late 2023, we came up with the idea of AMS Transfers Plus. If you guys are interested in knowing what that is, I'm going to go a little bit more into detail about that at the end of the video. It is basically our print-on-demand transfer service where we also help other businesses and other transfer companies or other embroidery shops or sign shops or whatever, they basically are using quote unquote our DTF printers to print their custom transfers. So again, I'll go into detail a little bit about that, but once that took off, we needed more printers, obviously. And that is honestly where our fleet of DTF printers came from. We basically started growing that business and growing that side of it, as well as continuing to grow our apparel and our custom transfers, both screen print and DTF. And we just, keeping up with demand was difficult, and we decided also we needed to really get our turnaround time nailed down to same day. That is a very, very big thing for us. We are very strict on that. We want to stick to our word, and if having two printers wasn't enough, we needed to get more. So we ended up getting, well, we were talking about 3, but I mean, if you're going to get 3, why not get 4? You can't just have 2 red ones and 2 blue ones. You got to have 2 and 2. So we ended up buying our 2 newest printers, which are the same exact printer that you see back there. But again, these don't go up. It's like not like it comes in the door and it's up and ready to go. It took weeks of trial and error. It took weeks of getting everything dialed in. Of course, when you get one up, it's much easier, but there's still learning to do, and it still isn't something that you can really toss in right away. So it also, we ordered ours directly from China, so it does take about 2 months to get here. And also on top of that, you got to buy supplies. So it's just a lot of headaches that went into growing it and getting it to where we are today, but it was definitely worth it, and definitely worth the trials and the errors that came along. I say all this to say that while like it sounds nice starting a business, I'm telling you guys that the 5 years that we have been doing this, there have been difficult times, there have been hard times, and it's not always just fun and exciting, and it's not always, you don't always have wins. You have a lot of losses as well. You probably have more losses and more frustration than you do wins. Like I've told you guys throughout this whole video, we've tried everything in the book, and we were dabbling in like almost every business to see what worked for us. And one, extremely thankful for the partner that I have, because I couldn't do it without him. But also 2, that is basically the point of us having AMS Transfers Plus, because we don't want you guys to have to go through the 5 years of trial and error and the 5 years of learning. We know from experience right now, and for the very far foreseeable future, DTF is here to stay. It's not something that is going to go away. It's kind of just along the same lines as screen print transfers. It's going to be here for a very, very long time. And we knew that we as business owners wanted to help you guys build your businesses, and that is why we started AMS Transfers Plus. We knew that we wanted to help. We love building businesses. It's one of our favorite. We always say that you have to really fall in love with actually building the business, not just the end goals, because if you don't, it's going to be a very, very long road for you guys and for everyone who does it. That is actually something that Alex taught me. But all that to say, we did start the AMS Transfers Plus to allow you guys a little bit of help when it comes to starting your business. We want you to be able to focus on the actual building of the business and the falling in love with that side of it, while we handle the headaches for you, which is the printing, the shipping, the website, like all of that. We wanted to be able to help businesses expand theirs or even start theirs. We give you a website, you upload your designs, you can sell customs, you can sell gang sheets, you can sell whatever, and then we're just going to print and ship it for you under your name. And all you have to focus on is if you want to have that customer communication and you want to have that digital marketing, if you wanted to have the social media side of it, that is 100% on you. That is you. Like, we don't have any say in that. We just want to be able to basically take the heavy lifting off of your shoulders. I have, again, like I've said, 5 years of experience when it comes to business, when it comes to production. I also have about 2-3 years now of running DTF printers, and I know what I'm doing. Not to sound cocky, but I know how to make a very well DTF transfer gang sheet, as well as like fixing the artwork and all of that. So I want to help you guys take that headache away. Alex wants to help you guys get up, get your business started. So you guys just have to allow us that opportunity. And if you guys want to book a demo, you can do that right below. And if you also just want more information on it, feel free to reach out. You can ask us questions, because honestly guys, there's nothing we love more than talking about DTF transfers and our business. It's literally our baby at this point in our lives. It's something that we wake up, we think about, we go to bed thinking about, and it controls us right now, but we really wouldn't have it any other way. So hopefully this video gives you a little bit more of a deep dive, and maybe it lets you kind of see a little bit more into our lives, our personal lives, it shows you how we got to where we are today, and maybe it's just something that you guys have questions on or something that you need help on building. But again, like I've said, there is hours of content on both of our channels. We have done podcasts, we have done everything under the moon to kind of give you guys every type of content and every help, all the help that we can. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We love to help you guys. And if you guys do need custom transfers or you need custom apparel or anything like that, you can go to amstransfers.com below. We also have pre-made transfers. But thank you guys so much for watching, for listening, and I want to get to know you guys a little bit more. So leave in the comments your name, who you are, what you do, if you are in this industry, if you are not in this industry, and also just leave in the comments say hi. I was drinking an Alani. Let's get to know each other there. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys on Monday for a daily vlog.
Up the car, playlist on blast. UPS run, yeah, I'm moving fast. They might scroll